Hi, it's Ian from the Postal Hub podcast,
And Marek from Last Mile Experts.
and we are the Last Mile Prophets. This is the last word on the last mile. Marek, we're going to talk about Hermes today and delivery companies, not handbags, of course. We talked about Hermes not shopping itself around. Is that how you say it? But beginning of June, I think it
Well, in,
was.
in fact, Ian, I think this has been going on for a couple of years. I seem to recall discussions almost 2 years ago where they announced that they were looking for a partner and we were wondering who it might be. They wanted a strong partner with volumes. And do you remember we were thinking, could it be Alibaba? Could it be Amazon?
Well, there's even I think we had a discussion whether or not it might have been FedEx even that might
Well,
take an
that was the
interest.
one that sounded really weird, but at the time already it was FedEx. The latest one, which I think was about 6 weeks ago, was FedEx or Advent. But Advent was focused on the UK, and the idea was FedEx takes the rest.
So the announcement that came through on the 10th of August was that Advent is taking a 25% shareholding in Hermes Germany and a 75% holding in Hermes UK. So what do you think of that?
Well, I think it's understandable because Germany is the core market. It's one where there would be probably least synergy with the current portfolio company, InPost, for a number of reasons. I think the DHL patent on lockers expires sometime end of this year or next year. So probably it's not the easiest one to go into with InPost. Whereas the UK, it's rife for development, particularly because InPost has over 1,000 lockers that haven't been doing too much up until now. So it's a great, I'd say, addition, and it makes a lot of sense. Particularly, and as you probably recall, Hermes has a very much B2C dedicated model. They have these lifestyle housewife couriers. So it all fits in pretty well.
In the UK, Hermes doesn't have the greatest of reputations with consumers for a range of reasons. So perhaps here, this investment could be, if it's able to align itself with InPost lockers, it could be what pushes Hermes into a higher strata level. I didn't do Greek or Latin at school, obviously, everybody. It pushes them into a different level when it comes to offering customer-centric service things and so on and so forth. What do you reckon?
I think that there's a lot of opportunity here because what Hermes doesn't have is lockers, and what InPost only has is lockers in the UK, for example. Also, InPost software is infinitely more versatile and much more innovative than what Hermes has. So do you remember we had a post a couple of weeks ago about Hermes shouting off the treetops how their wonderful new software was so flexible and it was old hat. So I think that makes a lot of sense. For me, to be honest, the sort of icing on the cake would be if they somehow got Collect Plus into the mixture, because
Well,
then you'd have an unbeatable out-of-home capability.
on that, Hermes in Germany has set up packet. I don't want to say it. It's FUXX. So if I pronounce that, it might come out as a rude word in English. All right. The idea is that nominated neighbours will collect parcels for a number of their neighbours. Nominated neighbours. You know what I mean? Is that, let's say in an apartment block, one person will be the nominated delivery point for a number of those people in that apartment block. Now, right now, in times where people are working from home and so on and so forth, it might not be such an amazing, groundbreaking thing. And certainly it's not that new an idea. There was a startup in Singapore called Park My Parcel. Oh gosh, I'll put the real name for it down here. Who did the same thing. These sorts of innovations could be rolled out to the UK, let's say, because we know that deliver to neighbour is already an established thing in terms of Royal Mail's delivery options are. I know you're not a massive fan of it though, Marek.
Actually, you'll be surprised I am because it really works well in the UK.
Why do you think it works well in the UK?
Best in class players, and as you know, I'm a big fan of DPD UK, achieve very, very high first time delivery rates simply because Leave with Neighbour is so easy. And in fact, if you remember in their software, they have a capability for the consignee to select which neighbour. So if you
Yeah.
get on really well with John, but don't particularly like Marek, you'll select John to pick up your parcel. And it's got quite high acceptance in the UK. So I think that there's already a model that works. From my perspective, it's not so new, this German product with the funny name that we won't repeat, but it's effectively just an extension of what they've already had for several years in the UK. I'd call it crowdsourced PUDOs, effectively,
Effectively.
or micro PUDOs. Either way, what is cool is they've done a lot of work in this space. I think they've been more creative and have more experience operationally than they do on the tech side. And InPost is exactly the opposite. They've got a lot more experience on the tech side, both software and hardware. So I think it's going to be very interesting how this comes together. The other big question for me is this the end or the end of the beginning, as Churchill might say? And I would say it's probably the end of the beginning. Why have they got the small shareholding in Germany, the big one in the UK? Why are other countries not included? This is going to be very interesting. My view is probably it's an initial stake. They're going to see how it develops. In the core market where InPost and Advent have most to say, they have a controlling stake, so they can basically do whatever they want. And I suspect what's going to happen is if this is a success, then stage two will take place, probably where a controlling stake in Germany is bought and maybe in some of the other Hermes BUs. Because what's interesting is Hermes is not a pan-European network. It's probably the only independent network that is strong in several markets, but it doesn't come anywhere close to DPD and even GLS. I can see two final end game elements. Poland fits quite well into that if they buy a controlling stake or all of the rest of the network. And then if you can imagine, maybe if they decide to buy other bits and bobs, one idea could be Austrian Post, who has quite a nice network in Eastern Europe, but not much else.
Now, Marek, you just mentioned Austrian Post. Now, the partnership won't affect Hermes' existing activities in Russia, France, and Austria. The other part of this is that the stake in Hermes Germany also includes the other Hermes Germany group companies, including Border Guru, Liefery, and Hermes Germany's share in the Parcel Lock venture. I think this sort of ties in a little bit with what you were saying before, Marek, about InPost and Hermes and InPost expanding beyond Poland. Is this sort of a bigger play here, a bigger picture thing out of all of this?
Yeah, I believe probably the most interesting element would be the cross-border capability and the fulfillment capability, because that's something that hasn't been a strength historically for InPost. By getting that capability, I think it will move them forward, and it's important because large e-commerce tend to prefer multi-country solutions and not just have a different partner in each market. So I think that's one to look at. The JV, if I remember correctly, this parcel lock one, it's a JV between few carriers intended to act as an alternative to big bad Deutsche Post. And I'm not sure how successful or big it's been. So that one I'd worry less about. Having said that, we don't know. It could be that InPost technology could power that ahead. And the final one of the three that you mentioned that's interesting because of the post-COVID times is Liefery, or Liefery, however you pronounce it, which is an ultra-fast same-day service, if I'm not mistaken. And that's technology or competence that InPost doesn't have. So it really fits in together quite well. But as I said earlier, the big picture for me is, okay, is this the end? I think it isn't. I think this is the beginning. And it's maybe the end of the beginning, but let's see what happens next.
We could see a stronger pan-European Hermes offering out of all of this. We could see more innovation in out-of-home delivery or express delivery. Who knows? It really is a fascinating space to watch to see whether there will become a pan-European giant to challenge the likes of DPD, DHL, and who have I missed? GLS. GLS.
Well, GLS has got their own issues right now, given parent company issues. I would say one other thing that I think is really interesting here. Normally, Advent would probably be looking at selling InPost around about now. There's a lot happening in the Polish market where InPost is strong. You know, everyone is talking about Amazon coming in, Alibaba coming in, the current incumbent Allegro needing something. This suggests to me, though, that actually Advent has taken a decision maybe to first develop it into something even bigger. And instead of making a local killing, make a pan-European killing, because, as you've said, there's not much else to buy with that sort of footprint.
Interesting times ahead in the last mile in Europe. Marta Krzyzewski, thanks for being part of the Last Mile Profits today.
Thank you, Ian. Thank you, everyone.